Have you noticed that kids today can quote more cartoon characters than they can their own parents and teachers? I know we can all say it's cute, they have retentive memories and all that, but can we also agree that it's dangerous? Now, let me explain why. In the past, African kids learned from parents, teachers, elders, tales by moonlight, folk tales, and all, right? But today, kids are more glued to the screen, the TV screens, the phone screens, and the tab screens, right? Absorbing values from cartoons, YouTube, and streaming platforms. And this goes to tell us that cartoons are no longer just entertainment. Gone are the days where you say, oh, just put on cartoon, Tom and Jerry for them, let them watch while we, the adults, do the adulting things, right? It's not just to help them pass time, it's now teachers. Cartoons are now teachers. It's a fact. Whether we choose to agree on it or not, cartoons now teach our kids. Now, one thing I'd also like to point out about cartoons teaching our kids is the fact that most of the cartoons our kids watch here in Africa are created for Western children, Western culture. Right? When the developers or the creators of these cartoons create them, I strongly believe that they do not create these cartoons with the African viewers in mind. Right? Now, Western cartoons normalize individualism over community, rebellion over respect, or it begins to normalize behaviors that conflict with the African culture or value, right? Children begin to mimic characters, speech, dressing, and attitudes from these Western cartoons that are conflicting with the African values and morals. Now, for example, kids replicate sassiness. Oh, you want to be sassy. They replicate lack of respect for authorities, which is something we see very strongly in the Western cartoons or even movies, right? And this thing is then portrayed as funny. Being disrespectful to your parents, elders, teachers is portrayed as funny in our kids' cartoons, right? And African children copy it regardless of the society that they live in, which shares a very different value and view from that of the Western cartoons which they watch, right? Every storyline teaches something, whether it's the main character, the background character, or the themes, main themes, minor themes. It teaches your child something. That is something you must understand. They don't just watch, they are watching and they are learning, right? Some cartoons introduce topics like LGBTQ, which I've covered in my previous video. If you haven't seen it, you should go and check it out. How LGBTQ plus is being infused into children's entertainment industry, and African homes are streaming it non-stop, right? It also introduces witchcraft, and if there's one thing I know the Westerners for is being practical, right? They won't just say a bunch of gibberish and say, oh, we just said a bunch of gibberish and that's what we call witchcraft. No, they will bring actual witches to cast actual spells in these cartoons, and we let our kids watch them, and then we're not even aware that spells are being cast over our kids daily via the cartoons that they watch, right? Violence is another thing that streams nonstop into the African children entertainment sector. A lot of cartoons are very violent in subtle ways, right? In subtle ways that parents will not even notice, but then your child will. So when your child begins to express aggressiveness or showcase aggressiveness, you should probably check what cartoons they watch more, right? Now, once children internalize all these LGBTQ, witchcraft, violence, and the likes that they watch from the cartoons, once they begin to internalize these things, it becomes normal for them, right? Now, and this makes parents lose control or influence over their kids, because at this point, the kids will rather believe the cartoon characters over their parents or their teachers, right? And if you ask me, that's a very dangerous place for any parent or any child to be in, right? Now, what can we do? Now, here's what we can do. Parents must screen their children's content. I cannot stress this enough. Believe me, I say it in all my videos. Parents, please put an eye on what your kids watch, the sort of cartoons they watch, the sort of characters they emulate. You know, kids always have a favorite cartoons, right? And there's something that draws them to those cartoons. You need to be conscious of it, right? And then we also need to create a balance by introducing them to local content and um entertainment, right? Or we can say, oh, but we don't have much African made cartoons and stories. Now we do, because I make sure we do. Oh, we don't have African books. We do, because I am making sure that we do. Right now, you can check out my ebooks for kids. You know, you don't need to get physical books since they have tabs, phones. You can check out my ebooks via the link in my bio. You can also check out my physical books for kids. Don't just let them zoom off on screens all day long. They can read actual books, right? We also have African based stories on YouTube, the Imaginative Tales and Wonders, and we also have live performances that we do for kids as well as substitutes, or rather substitution for the Western content. Now, instead of, I'm not saying we should ban cartoons, Western cartoons for kids. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply saying create a balance that gives value driven content, right? And we also need to understand that cartoons are not evil. I'm not saying cartoons are evil, but if we let them replace morals, right? If we let cartoons replace morals, we'll begin to raise kids in Africa who look up to Western fictional figures than their own parents, teachers, educators, and elders, right? So let's give our children stories that teach them to be wise, brave, and respectful. Stories rooted in the African culture, tradition, and belief. Right? My name is Imaji, and I make videos like this to explain to parents and educators the advantages and disadvantages of the children entertainment industry. All right, I'll see you in my next video. Bye.